What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. Alright guys, so like I said today, we have the brand new KTM RC 390 in for a comparison versus the Yamaha R3. Now both of these bikes are fantastic options in the A2 category here in the US, and they are both very comparable in price, with the KTM coming in at about $6,000 and the R3 coming in at about $5,400. So there's not a huge difference in price between these two bikes, but which one's going to give you the most value? Which one's going to give you the best bang for your buck? We're going to break down everything you need to know about both of these bikes in this video. Now let's start off by talking about the design and the styling of these two bikes, because both of them look awesome and they appeal to that sport bike audience. If you take a look at the R3, it has very aggressive styling. You can see how it is inspired by the Yamaha R1. It has an LED headlight up front, and then you also have an LED taillight back here. The overall look of the bike is super aggressive. It looks really cool. This is the Yamaha R3. Now if we take a look over at the RC 390, you can see how KTM went with a little bit of a more Street Fighter kind of look. You still have an LED headlight up front and then a taillight back here, but you can see the lines on the RC 390 are a little bit more drawn out. It looks maybe a little bit less aggressive than the R3. Now in terms of styling, it really comes down to personal preference. Do you want something that looks a little bit more like a full-blown sport bike, or do you want something that has a little bit more of a Street Fighter vibe to it? Either way, both of these bikes look great, and they're definitely going to turn some heads. Now let's talk about the build quality and the materials used on both of these bikes. Starting off with the RC 390. The frame on the RC 390 is made of steel. You have an upside-down fork in the front and a rear monoshock. You also have a single-sided swing arm on the KTM RC 390. Now moving over to the R3, you have a similar setup. You have an upside-down fork in the front and a rear The frame on the R3 is actually made of aluminum, and you also have a single-sided swing arm on the Yamaha. Now in terms of build quality, both of these bikes are extremely well built. There are no creaks or rattles on either of these bikes. They feel rock solid. And again, when it comes down to build quality, they're both very comparable. Alright, so now let us talk about the fit and finish on both of these bikes, because this is another area where they both excel. Now starting off with the RC 390, I think KTM did a really good job with the fit and finish on this bike. You have a really nice seat that is comfortable. You also have nice grip tape on the gas tank here. And then if we take a look at the paint and bodywork, it's all done really nicely. You don't have any sort of bubbling or anything like that. It looks great. Moving over to the R3, I think Yamaha did a really good job as well with the fit and finish. Again, you have a really nice seat. You also have some nice lines and bodywork. And just overall, I think the fit and finish on the R3 is excellent. Alright, so now let us talk about the riding experience on both of these bikes, because this is obviously a very important factor when you're re-looking at a sport bike. Now starting off with the RC 390. The first thing that I noticed when I got on this bike was how comfortable it was. Now a lot of sport bikes can be pretty uncomfortable, because they're built for performance. They're built for going fast. But I found that the riding position on the RC 390 was actually really comfortable. You have a nice wide handlebar that puts you in a nice upright position. You also have a nice seat that is comfortable. So overall, I found the riding experience on the RC 392 be very enjoyable. Now, moving over to the R3, I think the riding experience is a little bit different. The riding position on the R3 is a little bit more aggressive. You have a little bit more of a forward lean. You have a smaller gas tank, which makes the seat a little bit narrower. So overall, I found the riding experience on the R3 to be a little bit more sporty, a little bit more aggressive. Now in terms of handling, both of these bikes handle really well. They're both very nimble. They're easy to maneuver at low speeds. And then when you get them up to speed, they're both very stable. They both have ABS, so you know you're going to have good stopping power. Overall, I think both of these bikes handle really well, and they're both very fun to ride. Alright, so now let us talk about the performance on both of these bikes, because this is obviously a very important factor when you're re-looking at a sport bike. Now starting off with the RC 390, the engine on the RC 390 is a 373cc single-cylinder engine. It puts out about 43 horsepower and 37 foot-pounds of torque. The engine on the RC 390 is very peppy. It's very responsive. It's a lot of fun to ride around town. It's also very smooth. Now moving over to the R3. The engine on the R3 is a 689cc parallel twin engine. It puts out about 42 horsepower and 31 foot-pounds of torque. Alright, so now let's talk about the price and value of both of these bikes, because this is obviously a very important factor when you're looking at a sport bike. Now starting off with the RC 390. The RC 390 has an MSRP of $6,000. That's the price that you're going to pay at the dealership. Now in terms of value, I think the RC 390 is a great value. you're getting a lot of bike for the money. You're getting a very high quality bike that handles well, that has a great engine, that's very fun to ride, and you're getting all of that for about $6,000. Now moving over to the R3. The R3 has an MSRP of $5,400. Now in terms of value, I think the R3 is also a great value. You're getting a lot of bike for the money. However, I think the RC390 might be a slightly better value. You're getting a little bit more bike. You're getting a little bit more performance. You're getting a little bit more features for the same amount of money. Alright, so now let's talk about the verdict here. Which one of these bikes is the best lightweight sport bike for 2025? Well, I think it really comes down to personal preference here. If you're looking for a bike that has a little bit more power, a little bit more torque, maybe a little bit more of a traditional sport bike feel, then I would go with the R3. However, if you're looking for a bike that is a little bit more fun to ride, a little bit more peppy, a little bit more responsive, and if you want a bike that is maybe a little bit more comfortable, maybe a little bit more beginner friendly, then I would go with the RC390. Overall, I think both of these bikes are fantastic options in the A2 category here in the US, and they are both very comparable in terms of price, performance, and features. Now, before you go out and buy one of these bikes, I highly recommend that you come in and test ride them both. See which one you like better. See which one fits you better. See which one you feel more comfortable on. I think once you test ride both of these bikes, it's going to be an easy decision. You're going to know which one you want to go with. So there you have it, guys.